Truth and Reconciliation, we acknowledge the town of Edson is located on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional ancestral land of the Nikawa, Saulteaux, Siska, Pene, Kainai, Dene, Dakota Sioux, and Métis nations. We honor and acknowledge, we honor and acknowledge the land, the elders and youth which we gathered here for ancestors, have gathered here for ancestors for centuries. With that, I'm going to call for the adoption of the agenda with the additions. We call for the Committee of the Whole adoption agenda with the additions of a closed session land matter will be added. I guess he's putting up there. I can't read it. Yes, I got it right. Okay. I'm going to call for the adoption of the agenda with the additions. No one's popped up here yet. Oh, nothing on here. Councillor Moore.
I so move.
Okay, thank you.
You're in the wrong street.
Oh, there we go. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Okay, and adoption of the previous minutes from April 30th, 2024. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
I move that the minutes of the April 30th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have no reports. And Corporate Services Economical Development Strategy, and it's not telling me who's presented by Morgan Roberts.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight. In 2023, the town contacted Light to engage with the business community and prepare the first Town of Edson Economic Development Plan. The main focuses of the plan were supporting local businesses, creating a regional hub for health and recreation, and a focus on laying the groundwork for investment readiness. On April 2nd, 2024, the plan was presented to Council for consideration, and at that time, Council had requested more discussion around Section 2.1.1. Develop a strategy to become a rural wellness hub for the region that supports complementary wellness and recreation businesses. Administration has taken this feedback into consideration and has provided Council with 3 options to amend this section. Option 1 would be to leave the wording as it has been presented in the original document under strategic direction, create a regional hub for wellness and recreation. And item 2.1.1, develop a strategy to become a rural wellness hub for the region that supports complementary wellness and recreation businesses. Option 2 is to reword 2.1.1 to better reflect and capture the opportunities that the Edson Healthcare Center and surrounding lands can provide and capture the excitement generated by the new YCE project, amending 2.1.1 to leverage the YCE development and new healthcare center to spur community economic development in Edson. Or option 3, provide 2.1.1, remove 2.1.1. Which is develop a strategy to become a rural wellness hub for the region that supports complementary wellness and recreation businesses from the document. At this time, administration is recommending that the economic development strategy be adopted with the inclusion of the proposed option 2. So option 2 again is to reword 2.1.1 to better reflect and capture the opportunities that the Edson Healthcare Center and surrounding lands can provide and capture the excitement generated by the new YCE project. I'll now open the floor for questions.
Okay, questions or concerns? Councillor Chechka. Trying to think.
Thanks. Okay, thanks through the Deputy Mayor to Council and Administration. Thank you, Morgan, for bringing this back. I know myself, I've had more time to reflect on the entire strategy itself as well, including the other options. So I see the amendment that kind of was made in the rewording, and I just I guess I'm a little, you know, wanting to get a better understanding about that, the developing the lands around the hospital. So is that something that like we proactively would look at it, just because I don't think we own the land, to my knowledge, and I know that there is some land that, you know, could be developed around there, and just kind of what administration is kind of like thinking about what that looks like, you know, in 10 years, if we achieve that goal, like what could be a scenario that would encompass that.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Shaka, I would say that we would be looking at more of a focus on promoting the area itself as being that opportunity. Clearly, we are not in possession of those lands at this point. With the new land use bylaw, a lot of the changes have been made to make the community more business friendly in terms of development, and we would, through that lens, look at that area.
Councillor Taylor, you should be.
Yeah, through the chair to council and first up, Ms. Roberts, thank you for bringing this back. You know, again, I've been reading this, and the recommendation you propose is certainly better than I think was there, but I'm still certainly challenged by some things within it, and perhaps maybe just the overall, just the creating regional hub for wellness and recreation. I am still somewhat challenged by this, because I guess I look at the report and the way it was sort of looked at as, okay, we have a big new hospital, we have a new multiplex coming, we have wonderful recreation amenities, and then I wonder if just the idea was like, oh, why don't we just meld all that together and try to promote something new? But I'm not sure that, I'm not sold that's something that this council can do, that we can just try to promote something that, I guess, or make something the economic driver of our community, or at least a third of it according to this plan, that's a part of our community, that's part of lots of communities, but to make it the main, like a focus, I struggle with that a lot. So, and I focus on some of the strategies of, and I brought this up last time, explore the idea of a community kitchen, garden, and food innovation incubator to support community health and food security initiatives, provide a strong supply of locally grown food. I think that's a well and neat idea. I'm certainly not sold that that's going to be the economic driver of our community, or even a third of it. So I'm really struggling with that. And I brought this up the last time we were discussing this, is that we are, and I try not to lie about what we are, is that we're an oil and gas town. And, you know, we want to see economic development. Well, we need large economic development through that. And we need complementary businesses to be attracted to that. Having the recreation businesses come, I think that's addressed kind of in the small business aspect of the support local business idea. I think those will come on their own when you bring industry, stuff like that, right? If you're looking at bringing in more recreation businesses, I would question whether or not the existing ones would appreciate that. So many of the existing ones already have sort of a niche in town, right? Whether it be a cycling place, a fitness zone, wherever it is. I don't think they're running to have competition running against them. I don't think that's something that I think that they like that niche that's already there. So albeit that option 2 is better, I think I look at it as almost rewording the whole thing to saying we leverage not just the YCE, but the many amenities that we have to attract major business to our community and attract lots of workers to our community. That's the way I look at this. We have so many different, again, the YCEs, coming in a few years, the library and so many other great facilities, we use that as the attraction tool. You mentioned in here about tourism in terms of develop partnerships to leverage a regional approach to tourism. And I like that. No mention of the museum in here, whereupon the museum would be our go-to to help attract tourism. So I still, and I guess I want to hear from the rest of council if they're struggling with the whole second part of this economic development strategy as I am. But I'm thinking it's still going beyond just the one section. I think it's going to beyond the whole create a regional hub for wellness and recreation. I think that's a struggle for me and a struggle to sell and to promote and for government to be the driving factor behind it. If it naturally happens, okay, but I don't think it should be something that we promote and we're pushing for. So those are my comments initially. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Chechka.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Chechka.
Through the deputy mayor to council and admin. So I do have another comment to make, but I'll reply to Councillor Taylor first. So yeah, I have struggled with that as well. But I also was able to reflect on other communities that have introduced other new industries, to their community, and this was one of the methods they did it. So, with that, I've been trying to have an open mind towards this because I do struggle with it a bit. I do, for some of the reasons that you mentioned. And I think that it's important to have some diversity. I couldn't help but notice that in the objectives, none of the items in that Create a Regional Hub for Wellness and Recreation were listed in the short-term objectives. They were all medium or long term. So I felt a little bit better with that because I thought there was a few other things that maybe were necessary before kind of going in that direction. So I have been trying to be open-minded towards that. But definitely it's still, I'm a little challenged with it. Something that as I was reading through, I was trying to see, how closely related this was to it. And it's kind of like, in my mind, it would be a part of that focusing on the groundwork and foundation. And I know we brought it up a few times, and also just at our strategic planning session is the 2nd and 4th Ave corridor, and just kind of tidying that up a little bit and making it a bit more attractive, not creating a policy that all the businesses have to be matchy or anything, but just tidying it up, right? And I was reminded of a youth council meeting we had a few years ago when I was one of the counselors on there, and we brought up, like, how do we attract people to Edson, or what do we need to do or change? And the overpass that came up was, okay, well, you need to make it look nicer when you come over the overpass, right? And so I'm just wondering, is that addressed in here at all? Like, I know there was one portion that said create a community improvement program for leasehold improvements on Main Street, but that was the only kind of, I don't know if you want to call it beautification or maybe just making it more attractive, that was kind of included in that. And just was kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that, or how that, would be incorporated with an economic development, because to me that's attracting people and businesses, which is also what it looks like when you get here, right? So I'm just kind of wondering how that would work with this, or if it does at all.
Go ahead. Do you have a follow-up?
I do, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor. I would say that while it may not be addressed at the top level here, quite a few of the topics do speak to that, and through execution would definitely be involved with making that happen. Economic development is an interesting topic because it's never done alone. And really, in order to improve beautification in our community, we'd be looking to multiple departments to work together on strategies to improve overall. So I would be reluctant to speak to a specific strategy that I would be able to address by myself in economic development, and point to the partnership that would have to come from multiple partners within the town working together on a common goal. But I do think that at the root of this document, there is beautification and the idea of continuing to improve the look and appeal of Edson as a destination.
Mr. Mayor, if I can get you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Chouinard, and thank you, Ms. Roberts and Deloitte, for your work on this. This is our first, that I'm aware of, our first economic development strategy, so it's important that we're, delving into this and getting everybody's thoughts and views. And like Councillors Taylor and Chachka, I've struggled with this. For the fact is that we are already a bit of a regional hub for wellness and recreation. We have a ton of private businesses that provide different levels of services, and some just expanded recently. So for us, I think it's good if the municipality focuses on what we have already. I'm challenged with welcoming more to compete because we have a limited population base here. So I'm challenged with that. I'm challenged with the fact that, I understand this may be a bit of a visionary document of what we're looking to become, but we are an oil and gas industry town. Forestry is a big part of that as well. In order to support existing businesses, in order to grow our population base, we need to be focused on industry. That's our strength. For me, if we're looking to expand anything, we should be looking at working with our forestry partners to see value added for our forestry sector, or working with oil and gas to see value add for our oil and gas industry. That's who we are. I don't want to shy away from who we are. Too often, I've seen this in recent history where communities are running away from industry. That's the basis of what we are. Let's try not to become the next Canmore, because that's not who we are. And so it's really, when we're talking about the hub for wellness and recreation, I really think that belongs into part of the supporting the local business, supporting our current health and wellness amenities and helping promote that, because sometimes it's hidden away as a part of our community, and that people that are looking to maybe move here or invest here don't know about the wide range of opportunities that are available. I think that if we are looking to grow our community, we really need to focus on some of the value add for our current industry that's here, because we are already a regional hub for oil and gas, and we just heard about a new pipeline project that's just going to be east of us, going to Edmonton with ATCO, going to be creating more activity for us. So trying to build off of that. I understand many communities look at trying to diversify, and I'm not against that at all, but it's really a struggle when you're trying to promote something that's not really your core. And I've seen other communities invest a lot of time, resources, energy, and really it's a great visionary thing to try to do for your community, but I don't think it's where we need to put our eggs into that basket. I think we really need to build off what we have and supporting what we have already. I think there's a lot of great stuff in this document. It's good to have a strategy and build on that and support, for example, 1.2, support workforce attraction and retention efforts. We have a huge challenge in this community regarding that. Some of the investments this council is making is going to help alleviate, I hope, some of that pressure. And we have great schools. We have great hospital. We have a lot of great things. So how can we build off of that and try to be something that we are, not something that we're not? That's kind of my point of view.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have a follow-up to that, or I'll go on to the next councillor? Ms. Roberts, do you have a follow-up for the mayor? Or? You don't have to have one, we're just asking if you do. Okay, thanks. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Through the chair to council administration. Thank you, Mayor Zahara. I think that says it really well. And I spin off of that to say, maybe sometimes I get seen as the social issues kind of guy, but on this one, this is where I kind of leave things sometimes to the market, that right-wing idea to say, let the market decide. things, right? I really struggle that government should be pushing something that's not there, because a lot of times government gets it way wrong. What we should be doing, and I think Mayor Zahara said, I certainly tried to allude to this or say this, is that we should be looking for those complementary businesses to our oil and gas and forestry sector. That's what we want. We have these, we have the Cascade Power Plant, online soon, if not already. We have Pivotal, you're going to be online soon. Looking for those complementary businesses to go around those, right? Then from there, those smaller recreational businesses will happen naturally on their own. That's what generally happens. And we didn't do anything other than attract major businesses to get here. That's all we've done. I've used our amenities to say this is a place worth living. After that, you'd be surprised those other businesses end up popping up. That's just a natural thing that happens. So I agree with Mary Zahara. That's kind of where we're at. I really struggle with that section, but the top section speaks a lot about who we are. Attracting, trying to find ways to attract and retain workers. Maybe the only bit that I will say I like out of the wellness hub is the tourism and then the events idea. Those are things that we're already kind of doing already. And use, we can expand upon that, but those are my comments on that.
Councillor Chechka. If I can get- Oh, he didn't come out.
You activated.
I deactivated again. Sorry. Try that again, Councillor Moore. Sure. Okay.
Okay, great. Through the deputy chair, yeah, I agree with most of the points that everyone has made tonight on this. And, I'm thinking that the hospital, we already have some pretty good services there, but I think in the future there'll probably be even more for the people of not only Edson, but the area. And I remember a few years ago that somebody tried to create retirement communities here. And it was there was one that was near the mill out there at Branch Corner. And it kind of fell through over the years. And there was another fellow who tried to create something around Hinton. And I'm thinking, with the aging population, perhaps, and in 10 years, it's going to be a lot more seniors around. That may be a viable thing in the future. People may not want to retire somewhere else. They may want to retire right here. And with the changing climate, maybe it won't be as cold as it has been in the past. Who knows? In some ways, we can't predict the future, but that's just some of the thoughts I've had. And I agree that, we're industry-based, and that's probably not going to change over the years. There may be some different industry coming in, but, we do our best to encourage that as well. So, and that's the way I look at it anyway. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Chechka.
Thank you.
Now you're.
Okay. Thank you through the Deputy Mayor to Council and Administration. So I agree with what Mayor Zahara said. Investing in something that we already are has value to that. There is a couple parts of the under the title of creating a regional hub for wellness and recreation that I really think are great. And so one of them is attracting the recreation-related businesses. And to me, that means youth things for the youth, a private business to open up something for the youth. That's what that screams to me. I know it can mean lots of other things, but that is a gap we have right now. And it is something that people in a survey, hopefully in less than 3 hours from now, we'll hear about how that's really important to people, are the youth programming things. And to me, that's something that I think we should attract private business for youth programming, recreational activities, whatever that looks like, I don't know. I'm a little challenged with that community kitchen part, but then there was a program just near Hinton that's doing this whole food thing that, they're growing shrimp or I don't know what they're doing, but They're, you know, like this is, you know, maybe this is something in the future that can be done. I think the regional tour approach to tourism, I think absolutely we need to do that, because tourism isn't just good for people coming to our community, it's also good for our residents and the people that live here, first and foremost. And attracting signature events to better utilize our parks sounds lovely. Like, I think that we should be utilizing our parks. I think that's a great idea. So I think the part that is just a struggle is the title, to be quite honest. There's a few other things listed under there that just make it a little bit challenging. And then just kind of the cluster near the hospital seems tough, because I don't see why you couldn't have something away from the hospital too, unless this is geared towards people that are at the hospital, which I'm not sure if that's what that's for or not. And I can't help but notice it is one of the smaller of the three items, at least with the space it takes on the paper. So I think, so we're dividing it in thirds, but it is less than its portion, and it is towards the medium to long term end. So that's where this is kind of like I'm okay with, but there's a couple parts that I'm challenged with, but I can understand where some of that is also helpful and maybe useful in our community.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, if I can get.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Roberts. And I do want to say that although we are maybe picking apart the second section, I will say sections or strategy 1 and 3 are exactly what we should be doing. And I do want to stress that. Obviously, I just, and I echo what Councillor Chachka said about perhaps the title is that, and there's so many different ways that can be interpreted. Recreation and Wellness Hub. Is that what it is? Hub for Health and Recreation. That can mean lots of different things, but to me, that's creating something brand new and going down a road that again may not work out for us. And I don't know if it's up to government to decide that. If it happens naturally and begins to take off on its own through recreational businesses that pop up in our community, as they pop in lots of communities, then there's something to explore. But certainly not something I want to kickstart. That said, 1 and 3, really great. So we walk that away. So there we go.
Mr. Mayor, you're up. Sorry, Councillor Pisichny, you're up.
I looked over and I saw a flash. I said, how did you beat me? Okay. No, if I'm up, is it my turn?
It's your turn, according to my field. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor to Council Administration. I echo a lot of what the Mayor has said and Councillor Taylor and a few others. Let's just be honest, in health and wellness, health, for example, is a socialized product in this country, and it's not a private facility, and we can't control anything to do with it and have zero influence or power on it. So I think it's a bit misleading in our plan. Let's be who we are. Let's focus on industry and the supports to get people's families here to support those industries. Now, tourism, and I don't know how many times in my years at political tables talking with economic development, how many times tourism comes up. And I'll note that the average income in a tourist community is really low. And frankly, I don't want tourist jobs here. I want high-paying jobs in this community, jobs that contribute to our community. And when I think of tourism for Edson, let's be honest, we're not Jasper, we're not Niagara Falls, we're not a tourist community. But what we can do on the tourism side, to me, is we have events that our residents enjoy, and people will come to our community for those events. Those be it tournaments, those be it, bike skills park events, things that our residents can enjoy. And people, when they look at our community, go, I want to live there because they have a lot of festivals. I want to live there because they have a lot of events that my family can partake in. To me, that's a tourism draw to me. It's not, hey, come and get off the highway and stop here and drive up the street and check this. That's not going to happen. You can't compete against the Jaspers and the Banffs of the world. And again, I don't want to. I want, I think our chamber puts on a street fair. People drive through and go, oh, what's going on here? That's pulling somebody off the highway to support your chamber who supports your businesses. And creating these hubs, and I know when these consultants build these plans, they're really trying to give us a lot of product, but sometimes let's just do really good at certain things, and that's supporting our businesses in this community to make it easy to do business in the community, to have the support networks in place so that when a business wants to open up in Edson, let's get out there and tell the world, hey, when they put the pipeline through, they came to Edson because they knew we were pipeline friendly. Edson's not against you coming and doing a pipeline. We support it. Come to town. That's the kind of stuff we need to focus on, that we are, and we're not a community that doesn't, like the earth. We're great recyclers. We care about things, but at the end of the day, let's focus on who we are. And I think the regional hub for wellness and recreation is a really misleading title, and I can't support it in its format. And I'm leaning towards option 3 because I think we need to totally revamp that section of this. The rest of it's looking great. We're not building anything around the hospital. It's Alberta Health decides, not us. So, and all the relevant businesses that come along with it are already in our community. We have a lot of the the physios and the chiropractors and all that kind of stuff in our community already. So we do have a lot of that. So I'm just basically echoing what I've heard as well, but I thought I better make sure that people knew where I stood on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pisichny. Mr. Mayor, you're up.
Thank you, and Councillor Pisichny, I think indicated a lot of what I was thinking, and Councillor Trochka and Taylor as well. I think that if you wanted to change anything in Section 2, it'd be a regional hub for community and industry. And then with community comes some of the things that we talk about in here. I would strike out the portion by the hospital, because the reality is our infrastructure can't handle development there right now. We know this. Until we have struggles with water capacity, which we've talked about here, that's not really a feasible thing for us even in the next 10 years. But we can do a lot of infill. We have a lot of sections of downtown that could use some revitalization to attract some of these things. And at the end of the day, good, high quality paying jobs is what we need in order to attract people here. Promoting the things that we do have, working with the snowmobile club to promote snowmobiling in the region, working with the county to promote some of the things that they have, or ATV or bike parks, all those sorts of things. I'm all for that. But to try to develop something in an area of our community, which we know we don't have the infrastructure to support that right now, I think is a huge challenge. And I think we'd be lying to ourselves to include that in here. But I think if you reformat Section 2 to talk about being a regional hub for community and industry, that's something I could get behind. And a lot of the points in here, attract recreation-related businesses or support recreation-related businesses, I could, definitely support something like that. And regional tourism partnerships. We're not going to be the Jaspers, but we do have things here that can attract people, like the bike park, like the snowmobile trails, things of that nature. So, and we have a lot of great tournaments, and with our new facility, we'll be able to host a lot more. So we could build off of that as well and support our nonprofit organizations in doing so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Taylor, you're up.
Yeah, through the chair to council administration, just spinning off what Mayor Zahara said, I love the title. I didn't write it down, but it sounded great when you said it. I assume it's on record somewhere, so that's great. And spinning off of that, and we have in there, it says leverage YC to attract recreation-related businesses. It's leverage YC and other facilities and amenities to attract industry, because that's what we're doing. For so long, I think we have lost business, we have lost residents to neighboring communities because we lacked those facilities. Well, that time is going to change here right quick. Right, as people start kind of looking at Edson saying they have all these updated facilities, and that's the place where we need to set up shop. That's the place where I want to go work, right? And we focus on that. And I spin off what Councillor Pisichny said. We have, we do a pretty good job at holding events and festivals. I speak to my parents in their town, and I tell them about all the events going on in our community, and they say they got a lot of stuff going on in Edson. I know. I said I went to 3 free barbecues on a Saturday once. It was great. But we do those things, and that attracts something for our residents. that's great doing stuff for residents. And in the end, if you get the odd car pulling over, that's good too, right? But also just making it so when people come and looking at our town, should I move here? Should I set up my business here? They see these events happening, saying, yeah, this is a community-minded town. And I think, I think this is the place to be, right? So, yeah, great comments. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Bevan will.
Yeah, through the chair.
Yes.
Struggled with that number 2 also in that. And I've heard from different people that when it finally went out, they looked at it and read it. They didn't agree with it either in that. And I like the idea that, you know, we're not a tourism town like Councillor Pacici was saying in that. But I know in the past when we held Rotary Sundays in the park and that, we had a lot of tourists come through. We even had buses stopping here and getting out and seeing what we're doing. Was it a Sunday? We changed it to a Wednesday, then we went to a Saturday, then went to a Friday night. We keep changing things around. Nobody knows what we're doing anymore in that. And I know some tour companies of the city that would look at what we had coming up and they would definitely have a bus come out here or come back through here and stop. And, you know, when we get 700-800 people out there and a lot of them as tourists, it was great. And I know some people that did stop here are now living in town here and that, you know, and I agree that, you know, we should, you know, support our local businesses, focus on what we have. We're never going to be a tourist town, but we can get the tourists to come here. Some of them may open up shop here, want to stay here. Our multiplex is coming online. We have good tournaments every place like that. So unless we do a lot more rewording on this or we go just to number 3 and just rewrite the whole thing in that, I do struggle with it also in that. So I'm not going to be long-winded, so that's...
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Chechka, you're up.
Thanks through the Deputy Mayor to Council and Admin. I do share Mayor Zahara's comments about changing that title to the Regional Hub for Community and Industry and removing that kind of cluster near the hospital since, as Councillor Pacici mentioned, we can't control what the province brings in. And we also are having a hard time supporting development in that area as well. So, you know, if this is something that, you know, the next time this comes up, if we happen to achieve all these things in the next 5 to 10 years, then, you know, we'll see what it looks like after that. But I just wanted to echo that I support their comments as well.
Okay, Paul, Mr. Hanna, we're going to try if we can get you up there.
Thank you, sir. Just through you, Mr. Chair, to the members of the committee. I think administratively, I would just remind the committee the efforts that were made and the engagements that were made with industry through Deloitte and through staff in the development of the document that you have before you. I would be reluctant to kind of write it or rewrite it on the fly here this evening. One of the options that administration has brought forward is to remove the second create a regional hub for wellness and recreation. But administratively, I also hear that there are actions that council, that the committee members like, and I read them, and I think I quite clearly, or I think administration quite clearly understands the ones that are attractive, the ones that are gaining traction with the committee members, and I think they pivot quite nicely, and this has been mentioned already, but they pivot quite nicely to either supporting local business or focusing on laying the groundwork for investment readiness. So I might suggest, rather than, you know, kind of a quick rewrite of number 2, that we proceed with the recommendation to eliminate number 2, and we could administratively capture those actions in the final documents without losing them. And then, as has been stated by the committee members, 5 to 10 years from now, the town of Edson is going to revisit its economic development strategy and have an opportunity to take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So to sum it up over here from council, we need like a 2.5 because you're hearing around the room, some of the wording is wrong. We don't want to remove it altogether. And thank you, Ms. Hanlon, for your comment. So I believe you have enough information, administration, that there was a few things. The name and the hospital is the only thing I heard that was negative. A lot of it was positive. We are not tourism, so I think if we rewrite it, we spent a lot of time getting here, so just that one we're stuck on. So a 2.5 would be not remove it, but rewrite it. Is there anything else you need from us, or? Okay.
I agree with Mr. Hanlon. Let's remove point 2 and rework it into the rest of the document as he's outlined.
That's what I meant to say, Mr. Mayor, not 2.5. That's where I said 2.5. Ms. Roberts, do you have anything more you'd like from us, or did we comment you enough?
Is council looking to have the document come back?
I would forward that, yes, I believe we want it to come back, correct.
Mr. Chair, we will update the document based on the feedback received this evening, and I thank you for that, and we will bring this back to a future meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, we're going to try to get you on here.
Just through the chair, are we saying to a future committee meeting first? No, sorry. Okay.
May I? We do have it set to come back to a council meeting for approval, because essentially we have not approved this economic development strategy, and we wanted to ensure we heard the comments and understood really what council wanted for this strategy, and that was the whole purpose of this evening. And we hope that we bring it back, and there may be still other changes, but we'll bring back what we've been asked to, and we would be happy to present it again for approval.
Just a comment with that said, is it going to be minor changes? Because I feel that if it's going to be major changes, we would come to another committee of the whole. No? Okay. Okay.
Deputy Mayor Chenard,
Yeah, go
may
ahead.
I, just for clarity, what I heard from committee tonight is to remove section 2, work the rest of the pieces in that we captured tonight from council with regards to committee or community and industry as well within the rest of the plan. That's what I heard this evening, and that's what I intend to direct staff to bring back. Is that sufficient? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Okay, that one was interesting. Next one is, okay, the next one up is faculty life cycle assessment report brought to you by Paul Hanlon, General Manners Corporate Services. It is getting warm here now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee members. Very briefly, it's quite an undertaking that the town initiated in 2023, and that was the completion of facility life cycle assessment reports for 13 of the town of Edson's facilities. The resulting reports were large enough that we will be bringing these forward here this evening and on May 28th. As I've stated with some of the other members of the SLT, tonight is kind of Building Condition Assessment 101. It's an opportunity to share with you building assessments for some of the smaller facilities here in the town of Edson, introduce the building condition assessment reports to you, answer some questions, and to that, I'm happy to have Adriana Almeida, who is with Salas O'Brien, and she'll be taking us through a slideshow and be available to answer any questions on these documents. And sir, thank you. I'll ask Adriana to join us, and she can introduce herself to the members of the committee. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My apologies. I was trying to unmute my computer here. I'm Adriana Almeida. I'm a building condition specialist with Salas O'Brien. We were engaged by the town of Edson to complete facility life cycle assessments for 13 of the town-owned facilities. This specific presentation would be focused on 8 of them. The condition assessment were completed to kind of look at the 20-year forecast for the city town-owned facilities. Basically, if you pick up the building and turn it upside down and shake it whatever stays in place, that's what we look at. We include all the architectural, site, structural, mechanical, electrical components. The reviews are visual in nature, and we generally address or consider needed repairs, maintenance, and life cycle replacements, and anything that requires, to be prioritized. We do some considerations regarding to code changes, since time of construction, and we also look at accessibility. Anything that's a life safety concern, we also address as part of our review. For our data collection methodology, we usually complete a site visit to the facilities. This specifically were completed on July 2023. We generally interview staff on site to gain knowledge of the building, understand any issues or any concerns that are related to that specific facility, and we document all the existing conditions. We take notes, numerous photos, and then we basically compile everything into a report. I believe I understand you probably have a summary of all the reports that we did. Today, we're going to be talking about some of them. We cover the Glenwood Cemetery building, Glenwood Brick building, landfill buildings, Kinsman Park building, Soccer Shack, Edson Food Bank, the Edson Airport, which include not only the terminal, but the 2 shops, and the Exxon Medical Center. All the facilities vary in, use, size, and age. When we look at the 20 years, sometimes there's things that need to happen multiple times, like painting, carpet replacement. A lot of times, commonly, most finishes don't last 20 years. They need to be replaced often. So we generally look at, some building components theoretically have useful life in them, and that varies depending on the use of the building specifically and other, factors. This table here summarizes the capital investments that we identify for the 8 facilities that you saw in the previous slides. The table breaks down costing by building per period. Immediate items, which are the ones you see in this column, are generally studies or life safety issues, or something that had a complete failure and it is critical for building operations. But generally, these are small items. This is ideally, you don't want to have anything that's a major component to be addressed as an immediate item. Otherwise, anything that is in acceptable condition gets put in year 5. Sometimes item in year 5 may be deferred again one more time, but that is as far as out as we would allow things to have passed their life cycle to be deferred. Basically because, after another 5-year cycle on that component, most likely that the usage of that component already has passed and it's likely to fail. These graphics here show the reserve funds allocations. It basically shows where money goes for each grouping of timelines. So we generally kind of forecast things into a 5, a 10, and a 20-year period. Vast amount goes to the architectural. That's to be expected and normal. And these are the components that are more prone to wear and tear. Usually mechanical equipment will follow, not as largely as architectural, and some of the electrical components will go in there. Structural ideally rarely fails, but we do see some structural concerns that we generally will provide, include costing in our study to be addressed. This table here shows the overall capital investments in comparison to the replacement value of the facility. If the amount of reinvestment gets close to the value of a new replacement facility, that's where you should really have to question if you should be reinvesting in that facility. In the case where multiple buildings are included in one report, which would be the case of the Edson Airport here, the value is skewed. You may need to look at each of those buildings individually to get a real sense of where they are in terms of reinvestments versus replacement cost. As part of the studies that we completed, we calculated a facility condition index for each facility. Buildings are no different than cars in the sense that if you buy a new car, once it is out of the dealership, it already loses value. It may fall under the good condition for the first week, but after that, its value condition continues to deteriorate with use. If a week later you decide to return it because for some reason you didn't like it, you will not get the same value that you paid for when once you get the car out, eventually all the maintenance items start showing up, oil changes, tire rotations, and other regular maintenance items typical of a used car. Similar thing happens to buildings. They only remain in the good category, which is the one on top, for a short period of time. And then their conditions start to deteriorate with wear and tear, and all the costing associated with regular maintenance starts to show up. Anything from operational maintenance, like changing the filters in your furnaces, or changing the light bulbs, or maybe repainting those walls that after 5-10 years are starting to stain or paint is peeling off. To be in a fair condition, that's basically a good place. That's where you ideally want to be. Good is a really hard area to be at. Because you're only there when the building is relatively new. And critical is basically where you don't want to end up. Because that means that basically you're getting close to kind of questioning if you should be continuing to invest in that building, or if it's time to rethink and maybe consider a new replacement facility. A building will slide from fair to poor as time passes, and that's inevitably gonna happen. But you want to slow down that curve, with continued reinvestments in the building. So when we estimated the overall condition of the facilities, we generally do that at the 5, 10, and 20-year mark. You see here that at the 5-year mark, so that's the forecast for the next 5 years, a few facilities are in the fair kind of area. Some of them fall on the, are falling on the poor condition. But you see how, with no reinvestment, how those facilities progressively deteriorate, some of them falling into the critical category. So any of those are, falling into that critical part, those are the ones I really want to, watch for. This is a graphic representation of the previous results, basically showing the same information, just different, presentation. I know some people prefer visual graphics. They think they're more helpful. Each bar here represents that 5, 10, 20-year mark, and you see the percentages of each and how they kind of slide off into that critical zone here on the right. You can see the buildings are sliding off into the critical zone are the Glenwood Rink building, the landfill buildings, the Edson Airport, which include 3 facilities. I'm gonna, have to clarify that, and the Edson Medical Center. So there are some items that would have priority over others, and this is based on the risk of failure relative to the building. Some items may have been pushed already one too many times and should be now prioritized. For example, a carpet replacement, just because the carpet is old, is different from a carpet that is old and wrinkling and lifting at the edges and that is becoming a clear tripping hazard. The one that is just stated may be pushed in the back burner over there, over other items that are more critical. But the ones that are a tripping hazard needs to be prioritized because it is now a safety concern. So we would generally rate those as a priority This would be a clear example of moving something from a low to a high. Probably gonna pass these real quick, but this is basically the list of priority items of, per building. You'll see that most of it will be architectural, interior paint, roof, some mechanical components will fall in there as well. HVAC equipment that has already aged to the point that it's getting there for replacement. And I think we're showing here, not specifically for this building, but some of them will have a barrier-free study, which is basically looking at the accessibility in the buildings, wheelchair accessibility, or people with different abilities. That wouldn't be the case for that one, but basically any building that would have a public access, we would have included a barrier-free, detailed assessment to address those concerns that we identified during our site visits. I'll continue moving on to this one. So, yeah, some of them will have, some electrical components, and electrical usually kicks in for major electrical equipment. It will kick in, 30, 40 years down the road. So basically where we have those items, it would mean that these are really old buildings where you are there with, replacing equipment that's already outdated. I'll continue moving on. Okay, takeaways. The 5-year outlook is the most important. The 20 years is good to know, but the 5-year outlook is the actual plan. You can really knock off some of those items and not let them go too far too long. For that reason, we recommend you do this review every 5 years, because as the building ages, new things will tend to pop up, or conditions will further deteriorate than predicted in the 5 years prior. In some cases, things may just look the same, and then at that point, the decision can be made to defer items another 5 years. One thing to consider is not pushing things too far. I think I already mentioned this before, because you don't want to get to the point of failure. Something like let's say like the roof. You can say the roof is okay, this year, even though it's nearing the end of its useful life. But if you continue to extend or defer that replacement, that roof may continue to leak and may impact other systems in the building. If it's a wood structure, maybe it will start providing moisture into the wood structural components. Then you probably have to deal with structural concerns. So it's important to do replacements in a timely manner. Kind of, it's a roll to dice kind of thing. The first part here shows the condition of the Edson Airport facility. So this shows how the if you do not do any reinvestments in this specific one, the condition of the building will slide off to the critical condition. So you will start at this point. Right now it's in a poor condition, but if you do not invest anything, it will fall into the critical. So you can see how the percentage almost doubles, sorry. You ideally want to keep the building into these fair area, ideally, but depending on the age, like even being on the poor is not such a bad thing. So in terms of reinvestment, we generally like to kind of present how funding scenarios work, and that means how much money you need to reinvest in a specific facility to keep the building in that ideal range of condition, like not sliding off to the critical, but maybe kind of on that fair range. You see here the different funding scenarios specific to the Edson Airport. This is just an example. We didn't do it for all the buildings. You can see here that even if you do the 100% funding in the first 5 years, you still remain in that poor condition category. And that's because you still, after the 5 years, then you have to carry, you have to consider that after the 5 year, there's other reinvestments that need to happen in that next 5 to 10 year cycle. Same if you do either 75% or 50% reinvestment. But if you do no reinvestment, or even if you do 25%, you slide off to the critical. So this means that if you have to kind of make a decision on how much funding you're going to put into this specific facility, you can either do the 50, 75%, even 100% would be ideal. But even if you do the 50 and 75%, you will still be on that, poor category, which is still okay for the specific facility and the age. Basically, this graphic here, you want to keep that line as flat as possible. That's kind of showing that, 100% reinvestment. That's the blue line here. The moment that, line slides off, further up, that's kind of where you don't want that, curve to go. So why is it important to do timely investments? As you see here, the light blue curve shows what happens if you let things deteriorate for a period of time without doing any reinvestments. Basically see how, kind of that curve falls, and then you have to do a major, investment to kind of bring that facility up in condition. And then, it's usually like a, a large amount of money that you have to put in. The dark line, the dark line shows how, shows a trend if you do timely reinvestments. You want to continue to do reinvestments so things don't deteriorate to the point where you have to do a large reinvestment or even a possible replacement facility. So even if this one, continues to, trend down, it's slowly getting there. You're not having that kind of, big kind of drop down to get back up again. And I think this is just that funding scenario graphic kind of broken down into, 4 separate graphics showing the same information. It's important to note that these don't have the same scale. So that's kind of why the kind of like lines look slightly different depending on the funding. But it's basically showing the same thing. I guess that's one thing that you want to focus on here is if you do 100% funding, see how kind of like the difference between the start of the 5-year cycle and the end of the 5-year cycle is only a 2% difference, whereas in the 25% funding, you see how that number starts at one point and then it kind of basically duplicates at the end of the 5-year cycle. Okay, these are things to consider. The FCI score is one part of the equation. The overall age of the building and then is the building still functioning as originally intended? If the building isn't serving the town needs anymore, can it be repurposed for something else? Should you reinvest in renovating it, or is it really time to think about replacing it? Does the current site even allow for expansion or replacement of that facility, or do you have to go someplace else? And then how long should you wait? When should you start planning? Realistically, it would take about 10 years for those decisions to be made. Then you would have to decide how much do you want to, let it go. Other things to consider, are we replacing it as is, or does it align with function with something else? So then 2 or more facilities can be combined under one roof. Can we combine the library with the rec center, or do we want to keep all facilities as individual buildings? Some of the things that, think about when, making decisions on the portfolio facilities that the town has. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, go ahead. No, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say if council has any questions for you. Okay, let's see, Councillor Chechka.
Thank you, through the Deputy Mayor, to Adriana and our town staff. Thank you guys for all your work on this. And especially thank you for only including the executive summary in our packet. So I was pleased to see that we didn't have the entire report. So we have a little bit of a gap here with our funding, is a guess I've got here. Since we have limited abilities to raise funds, are there grants for things like this to update facilities so you don't have to let it wear down completely and kind of invest into it periodically, I guess, is the way that it showed on the chart, or is it just all on us?
Mr. Chair, through you, excuse me, to Councillor Chachka. This is capital replacement. This is, municipalities do this, they plan for it, and so there are possible grants but they're going to be very specific. So if through the building condition assessment you determine opportunities that could allow for energy improvements, for instance, as an example, so insulation, architectural improvements like, say, windows, doors, those sorts of things, there is a possibility that you could utilize a certain amount of grant funding for that. But this really does speak to that whole infrastructure discussion that all councils are having at this time. I will, just to share with council, and thank you for noting, so this is one assessment, double-sided, and so I couldn't bring myself to kill that many trees. So they are available, but the executive summaries are pretty enlightening. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, you're up.
Yeah, through the chair, to council administration and to Adriana, thank you for your work on this and continue work. Obviously, this is only the first bit of it. The second bit of it's coming. And we talk about, to Councillor Chachka's point, to talk about grants. I would think that there would also, in terms of the barrier-free access, in terms of lots of accessibility grants, and this certainly is something I would, foresee us sort of focusing on, especially, when I read, especially around the food bank, there was accessibility issues within there. Speaking of the food bank, they had completed some internal renovations quite recently, within the last, 4 years. And they sort of took care of that. Was the town at all involved or notified in terms of, and I don't know if this current administration was aware, or even past council would be aware, how much they were a part of, in terms of, if there had to be capital upgrades done. I hate to say that would have been a nice time to do it in, so.
Go ahead, Mr. Handel, if you can answer that question.
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Taylor, I do understand from my facilities team that approximately 4 years ago, the food bank received a grant, and they did interior updates, and they installed air conditioning, they modernized the interior. I don't believe there was any major capital beyond the AC that was installed.
Go ahead, Mr. Kitlitz.
If I could, Deputy Mayor, just on the grant thing, I think one of the things that I'll contribute is that the better we get at building long-term capital plans, reports like this, and putting these plans together, the better chance we have at getting grants. Because I think historically the problem's been is we don't know what projects we have, and a grant comes up and we miss the opportunity. So we are getting better, and now that we have lists of projects for the next few years, you can start to look for grants, say, hey, you know what, this one applies to this project. Maybe during budget we tell council that maybe we advance this one up because there's an opportunity for it. So I think we're in better position, I guess, generally for grants in the future. Specifically on these topics I can't really speak to, but I think overall we're in better position.
Councillor Taylor.
And just to follow up through the chair to administration, looking through the executive summaries, some of the work that are looking at it, we're updating things like GFCI plugs and things like that. Not not major capital. Is that anything, or some of the smaller work, is that something that could be built into the operating or just general maintenance that we could do? So it's not, you know, okay, we're 2025, we're replacing all the plugs kind of thing.
Go ahead, Mr. Hanlon.
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Taylor, to the members of the committee, absolutely. One of the nice things about having these reports done is they have provided the facilities area with a to-do list for each of these buildings. We spoke to the A or high priority items, and these are already being actioned by our facilities team as we speak as part of the operational initiatives here in 2024. And it's just nice to know that these are things that, you know, sometimes we get into our buildings and it doesn't come to our attention, or the ground fault works. We don't realize that it's now no longer meets code and needs to be replaced. So it becomes an urgent, and we heard reference to health and safety. So it's nice to have those identified. It's nice to have the health and safety items identified. And I think it's twofold. One, operationally. One, it helps us to better prepare for the upcoming capital budgets and discussions with council for 2025 and beyond, as well as we take a look at studies such as this and see where and how to invest.
Councillor Chechka, you're up.
Okay. Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor to administration. So it was noted in the presentation and in our agenda package that we had immediate year, because this was kind of done last year, that the immediate year was 2024, and then year one kind of starts 2025. I think it was about $35,000, at least for this portion of it, was expected for 2024. Is that included in our budget, or is that something that we just haven't been able to tackle yet?
Okay, Mr. Hanlon, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Chatka, the specific number was not, but we did anticipate that there would be initiatives available in 2024 out of these reports, and so we did put some money into the budget to undertake some of this.
Okay, Councillor Moore, you're up.
Through the chair, to whoever can answer this, as supply chains have gone in the past few years, they aren't exactly reliable in some instances. So can we see a need to maybe stockpile some of these important parts and devices in recent years in order to be sure that we have this on hand if something fails?
That's a tricky question. Who wants to tackle that one? Mr. Hanlon.
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Moore, to the members of the committee. I think that the specific needs of the assessments for each of these buildings, I'm not sure that, I mean, during the budget process, the committee may remember we discussed about stockpiling air filters, getting a year's worth of those. And that's certainly something that we will do and look to find efficiencies and savings in buying in bulk. So much of what we are going to be doing here just simply relies on either our facility staff doing what they are able to do and then bringing contractors in to do the other work. So we, for instance, we must bring in certified electricians to do the electrical work and the health safety in that area. So I think we'll look to secure those efficiencies and savings where we can, but much of this is going to be just working into the budget in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you guys all for your reports. Does anyone else have any questions? Or if not, I think we're good to go. My comment, there was a lot of information, but it is very helpful for us to have the information. So if that's it, then thank you for your presentation. We will move on to recreation service and fees, brought to you by Vicky Bird, Manager Recreation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and members of Town Council. Good evening. I'm pleased to introduce Megan Carey from RC Strategies. She will be providing an update on our recreation services and fees review. Megan, who is currently working towards the final draft of this project, brings invaluable expertise to our discussions on enhancing accessibility and sustainability. Without delay, I invite Megan to share her findings and possible recommendations as we move to finalizing this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council, for your time this evening and providing you an update since we were last presented and had a workshop in November. I believe I'm able to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see. So tonight we wanted to provide an update to our process for you and to provide Council an opportunity to provide additional feedback on where the direction that the recommendations and strategic foundations of the report will take. This is our kind of final check-in before we do finalize the report. I wanted just to begin by reflecting on our objectives. This is really primarily looking at fees and allocations that will help to guide decision-making and service delivery related to recreation services in the town, but it does also take a broader lens to look at other elements of service delivery and how we can enhance our current directions and set us on a good path as we work towards the opening of the new facility in a few years. So I share this process diagram. When we joined you for a workshop in November, we had a key findings presentation where we were able to share with Council our analysis and research that had been completed. Following that, we were tasked with going back to the sport community to test recommendations. So to that pink round circle that you see there, and we went to a public survey that was distributed through your local sport organizations. And we were able to solicit feedback. We had 198 respondents. I believe in your package, you would have received the What We Heard report, and we'll be touching on some of that tonight as well. Since our presentation in November, we have delivered as well the Municipal Comparator Findings Report. And now, based on the confirmation and the feedback and information we've received from the sport community, we're in the process of refining and completing the Recreation Services and Fee Review Report. And tonight, as I say, is your opportunity as Council to provide us with any additional feedback or comments that you may have on the direction that will be contained in this important planning document. Last time we were together, we shared an overview of our analysis of the current service delivery. I would say that many of the comments that we received from our engagement with the sport community certainly echoed and validated our initial discussions with leaders from the sport community. We certainly heard from the groups the importance of providing opportunities for youth. We heard comments around the desire for the new facility, and certainly looking for a desire of wanting some more transparency and clarity in the process of the processes that are used for groups to get access to your facilities and how scheduling is determined. So I'm now going to delve into and looking at the strategic direction of the recreation services and fee review, and as well highlighting some of the key recommendations that will be included in our final document. So when we were last together, we did present a vision, a values and mandate, which was largely agreed to. We were tasked with, well, the sentiment was there with these statements that they did align with the strategic plan. We were tasked with looking at some of the wording to make sure that we could connect back to Council's strategic plan so we could really show close alignment between the vision of this document and the overall vision for your Council strategic plan. So we did consider that in the vision, and as well, we amended the values to include some different terminology such as service excellence and inclusive that aligned with the terminology and wordage within your Council strategic plan. As well, we have our mandate, and this mandate, just to remind you, will be an opportunity to guide the service delivery overall and the actions from your recreation department, but it also helps to situate our partnerships and our community organizations so they have a clear understanding as to their role within this broader delivery of recreation, because we know it can't just be the town. We do have to rely on our regional partners, so looking to the county, but also to our community organizations as well, who provide valuable services and opportunities to our residents. So we were able to, based on our initial research that we had conducted, and based on engagement that we had completed with staff, we were able to refine our recommendation for allocations based on the information that we received from the sport community. So importantly, the first piece would be around our priority user categories. So really touches on your first presentation tonight, and talking about having youth activity and thinking about how we can make dynamic use of our spaces that convey the most benefit. And so when we're talking about allocations, and this is a policy that will govern all of your facilities and spaces, this will be set up in a manner that allows for the town to first decide what are their programs that they're going to be offering. So your swim lessons, those are important revenue generators, and we want to ensure that those get scheduled. Once we have that completed, we essentially have a bucket of time that then groups who want to rent the facilities are able to come in and access our facilities. So this priority user categories is developed based on our feedback that we had received from staff, uh, feedback that we received from council in November, and then confirmed with our engagement with the with your participants of sport groups within your community, and certainly aligns with leading practices in the recreation sector. So we see our first priority as local not-for-profit children or youth groups. So those will be rental groups who are looking to rent space in our facilities or at our ball diamonds or soccer fields, who would be providing a programming for children or youth, and they are local to Edson region. The next group is would be looking at local not-for-profit adult groups. We then would look at non-local groups or not-for-profit groups, non-local not-for-profit groups. Once that has been exhausted, if there's any additional space remaining, that would be offered for-profit groups or commercial organizations. In a perfect world, we will have sufficient time and space within our facilities to accommodate all requests. However, there may be an opportunity or a time when we do have excess demand and we see that we have multiple requests. So we might have 3 not-for-profit, local not-for-profit groups who are running youth programming who are looking to access our arena or an ice surface. And so what administration then would do, and what will be a key piece of our final report delivery, would have a matrix that will allow your administration to score the requests that are coming in. And so we had previously talked about these different criteria. We had workshopped the criteria prior to that with your sport groups. And as you'll see in the What We Heard document, we did ask participants as well to provide their feedback. So using all of those pieces of the puzzle from our engagement that we received, as well as looking to our understanding of the recreation sector, these are the criteria that we've proposed that we believe best suits the needs of Edson residents and aligns with your values as well. So this matrix will be a scored element that can be shared with the group, so they have a clear understanding of how they might be given access to a facility. You know, it's an opportunity for you to model good behavior. If we want to encourage certain behaviors or discourage other behaviors within our facilities, showing this criteria and communicating that to the groups for them to understand when they can get access or how to get preferred access is a way that we can model good behavior within our participants. The direction that will be provided to allocation really focuses on ensuring that we are connecting the right activity with the right space. That's a really important point, particularly as we start to look forward to our new facility. really understanding when we're getting rental requests, what are the types of spaces that are needed. And so there will be kind of new processes developed that will help to alleviate some of the issues that currently exist and ensure that we are making the best use of our spaces and efficient use of our spaces within our community. We will also provide direction around considerations for eligibility into the allocation process. This is where we can ensure that we're allowing for new activities and new opportunities to be part of the process. We also have to ensure that we're including considerations for removal from the process. So when we have groups who are not being good stewards of our facility, that we have those processes in place with a clear policy that indicates how they may be removed from the allocation process. The report will make recommendation around setting out timeline request deadlines from an annual and a seasonal perspective. So again, if we can start to model out and groups understand when requests are going to be intaken by the town and also when they'll be receiving their allocated space, that will help all processes and all planning move forward and help to build those good relationships with our community groups. And we really want to ensure, and recommendations will focus on this, that it was developed collaboratively and that there is a good level of understanding and transparency as we start to communicate the new directives to the town. The second piece relates to fees and charges. So we were able to start to, when we're talking about fees in particular and asking to get public input on that, this is always a bit of a challenging subject. It's large, it's a bit complex. And so how we approached it and trying to get some feedback from the community members was really to focus on seeing where their values lay and what were their priorities and principles that they wanted us to focus on when we were discussing how we would be setting fees within for our recreation services. So we will be recommending adopting a benefits-based approach, and this is a philosophical starting point for how we think about where we're going to be directing our investment. And it really is about connecting and making sure that we're making efficient use of our resourcing. We know that we have limited resources, so how do we want to make the most of our tax dollars? And we want to do that by thinking about investing where we're seeing the most return on our investment. And when we're talking about recreation, that comes in the form of benefits, health benefits, wellness benefits that get derived from physical activity and building those strong community relationships. And so when we've previously talked about this and how we were able to tease this apart within the survey, is really starting to think relatively about where we see benefits occurring. And I think one thing that we've heard loudly through all of our discussions together, and what really came through from our sport leaders and from the participants of the sport community, is that we do think that youth benefit the most from our investment and from municipal investment in recreation. And that's not to say that adults and other groups don't benefit, but when we're thinking relative to each other, we do see that there are greater benefits when we're investing in youth. This approach also allows us to think about different activities. So we've talked a lot about tournaments, for example. And so when we're able to draw in a regional or provincial tournament, we know that there's greater benefits to the community. Our hotels are full, our restaurants are full, and there's that economic spin-off and also pride that comes from people being able to see that activity and buzz and vibrancy in our community. And so that might be where we would warrant having more investment, which would translate perhaps into some lower rentals rates for hosting those types of events that are really significant to our community. So this approach is our our understanding of how we're wanting to approach setting our fees. This does need to be operationalized, and we will set this out on a path for administration moving forward. We do need to ensure that we are having a solid understanding of what it truly costs to operate our facilities. And so to do that, there is a methodology to develop unit costing, which we've recommended, and we have set out a plan for administration to conduct unit costing to understand what the true cost is and help us to look at how we're going to recover those costs and determine what are appropriate levels of investment that the town will make to provide these services. Within our policy and framework that we've developed, we'll set out user fee categories as well as activities and set investment levels for each, along with a long-term implementation strategy. Because when we're discussing fees, if this is a process that does need to occur over a number of years, we want to ensure the sustainability of our community organizations, and we want to protect them in this process. So it'll be a staged implementation strategy for our new direction of establishing user fees and moving forward to setting us up to be operational for when you do open the new facility. So in addition to those two main categories of fees and allocations, we did use the the community group survey as an opportunity to see what types of outcomes your participants would like to see from this process. That was a helpful tool to help us refine where we saw these service delivery recommendations going. So we want to prioritize data gathering and analysis to inform decision making. So we'll have specific action plans and recommendations around the use of data to inform our decision making and continue to make evidence-based decisions. You're in a really unique position in completing this review and now looking forward to, as we're looking at the new facility, how we can start to think about and plan for new data gathering to make sure that we're getting the best information possible to make decisions. We've heard a lot from the leaders within the sport community, as well from staff, and we think you're in a very good position as well now to develop a recreation inclusion policy, and we'll have direction provided around that, as well as some leading practices and a template of the pieces that we would want to see included. We think it's important to formalize a policy around affordable accessibility to recreation opportunities. There's an important piece where we can look at your leisure assist program. We know that there was a policy put forth but was not adopted. So wanting to ensure that we do formalize that and look at perhaps where modifications might need to be made to your programs and continuing to complete that review. So we're making it easy for our residents to access these services, but also we don't want to make it too onerous on staff as well. So we want to make it easy for the residents that need these assistance programs to access them, but also we need to be mindful of the administrative realities as well. There'll be recommendations that focus on continuing to leverage partnerships to support service delivery. That'll be partnerships with the county, but as well, your important partnerships with the community sport organizations as well. So really trying to build on our strengths within the landscape of recreation and sport in Edson, and we'll provide direction and some decision-making models as to how we can leverage that and establish new partnerships. There's certainly opportunity to continue to build capacity within our community sport and recreation groups. So assisting them in their own developments. Often, when we're looking at volunteers, sometimes we don't always have those elements of training around board development. There's definitely information sharing that can happen and that should happen even between the groups themselves. And there's been some work that's started already and we want to see that continue because it certainly has been really well received by the groups within your community. And lastly, direction around creating a communications plan. So really trying to build out where we can improve our communications with the sport leadership, as well as broadly with the sport community and recreation community. We've heard some challenges that exist already, and we know that we want to start to streamline some of these pieces and ensure that people know where to get the information and that it's easily accessible to them. So that piece will be the last recommendation, which will be to form a communications plan. So I do really appreciate your time this evening, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Council, do we have any questions? Councillor Chechka.
Thanks, through the chair to administration and council. Thank you very much for this report, Megan, and all the work from our staff as well. I had a question about who we engaged. So I noticed there was a long list of all the user groups of all of our different recreational facilities that we engaged with that are kind of more formalized activities. Were we able to engage with those that use our facilities as like a drop-in way? Because I noticed some of the results on the survey talked about not as much drop-in desirability, but maybe if we didn't talk to the people that like to go to drop-in, we wouldn't have received their those responses. Because I know that's something that's come up in the past, and I was kind of surprised. So I'm just wondering if we engaged with those groups as well or not.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor. Great question. So we did, the questionnaire was delivered directly to registered participants of sport groups, or if they were children, to their guardian or parent. It was an open access survey, so it may have been, if there was an opportunity for the survey to be shared and for others to respond to it. It was primarily focused, and the scope of the survey was directly to engage the participants of organized sport. So you are right. Perhaps had it been a broader public survey, we might have heard something a little bit different around unstructured use. And one thing that will come out in this report is there is incredible value to having unstructured participation and activity happening in your facilities, and it's finding that right balance of ensuring that we have structured opportunities and that they're scheduled at an appropriate time, and then allowing for unstructured activity to take place as well. And we hope that the direction around the allocation piece, as well as those leading values as well, will help to ensure that we have balanced access and opportunities existing in our facilities, and setting that on a good path prior to the opening of the new facility.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through the chair to Megan. For profit groups and commercial organizations, through the communications you've had with other municipalities and such, what is usually the norm for that? I imagine one wouldn't want to charge them too much money. At the same time, I guess it varies in the different circumstances and availabilities of the different communities.
Through the chair. So when we work with communities, if we look at typically what communities try to set their cost recovery, or when they're thinking about their cost recovery for profit or commercial activity happening in facilities, we're typically looking at, it ranges between, I'd say the average is probably 125%. So you're having a profit of 25%. But we've seen and had communities go as high as 200%. So you're getting 100% profit on a rental of a facility for a for-profit or commercial activity.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair to Megan, Vicky, and the rest of administration and council. Thank you for creating the report and the ongoing work we're doing here. Just a couple of just quick comments. I love the idea of the matrix scoring idea. It takes that personal preference out of play, creates that scoring criteria to make a level playing field. I'm sure as it's developed, we'll have to fine tune it as it goes, but I think that'll be a transparent and fair process to book our facilities. I love the idea of the recreation inclusion policy. If that's something that's seen in other communities, I think that's going to be a positive here as well. I do echo what Councillor Chachka mentioned about the drop-in services. I think you know, certainly on the pool standpoint of things, a vast majority of it is really just drop in public swim, right? And also really chatting to those young sort of stay-at-home parents with children looking for things to do during the day, looking for services that way, about what kind of fee structure doesn't sort of price them out, right? And that's something I know we talked about when we workshopped this a few months ago, is ensuring that we're not pricing it out. If we walk into our facility and see it's empty, we're still paying for it to be empty, and we're still paying staff that's there. I'd rather see a full pool of people having fun, or full arena of people having fun, and just making it cost effective for them. So just two questions I have. In terms of our current, and just looking at the leisure center, and there were some comments, few comments made within the assessment about more time is needed. We need more access to ice time or whatever it is. How much is our facility, and I'm going to use the theater term here, how much is it dark? We use the term of theater, we say it's a dark night. How much is it dark? What percentage wise do we see that's dark time?
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I don't have the most up-to-date data on how often the arena is dark, but I can certainly follow up and get that for you.
All right, perfect. That's good answer.
I apologize.
The second thing, I guess a little more tricky, and I'm glad we're sort of prepping this as we sort of get into our 2025 budget discussions in the fall. Are we also taking into account that, I guess, in the future, in the not so distant future, that Yellowhead County will want a role to play in this process as well? Is that thought being brought into this report and future sort of fee structures and things like that, and whether Mr. Wagstaff or CO Beveridge has comments or thoughts on that as we just look, and again, it's into the not so distant future about the operational management of the Leisure Center multiplex.
Go ahead, Mr. Wagstaff.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor and all of council, to your last point about operational management. So that's a part that, aside from this report, that we are just beginning to have those conversations and deliberations with our counterparts at the county. The management, project management group, which is myself and my colleague at the county, as well as our recreation manager and her colleague at the county. We're just starting to get into some of that pieces, but the intent is to work together to come up with some of those pieces. It will be noted, as I've already noted in here, that it won't be void in this report. So we will touch base back with Megan and the rest of RC Strategies about at least making some reference to that move forward with the Leisure Center.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chechka.
Thanks. Through the Deputy Mayor to Administration. Are we going to be having a report on our cost recovery of our recreational facilities brought back to us at some point? I know we heard it last term. I think it was just on the pool and the arena, and we didn't actually have the data available for, how often, I don't know, the soccer fields were mowed and stuff. So that was something they were trying to change how they did things, so then we could get to the point where it would be that we could eventually see what those cost recoveries are. Because I think that would be a really interesting comparison on our facilities.
I don't know. Go ahead, Mr. Wagstaff.
Through the chair to Councillor Chachka and all of council, that similarly, I had just written down when we were talking about stats on dark usage at the arena. The first piece we have to figure out around charging is what does it cost us to operate that facility? So no, we're not there yet, but that is part of that process when we come up with a fee proposal that would say, how does that relate to how much it costs us to operate the facility and how much are we recovering off those fees?
Okay, I believe that's all the questions. Thank you for your presentation, and we will move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to questions from media or public regarding from the committee of the whole meeting from today. Steve, do we have any questions or any from the public? Nope. Okay, well then, thank you. I will call for a motion to move in camera.
I so move that the meeting move into a closed session pursuant to Section 24 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
All those in favor?
As
Sorry,
written on the
through-
screen. Oh, and 20,
20
and
oh.
27, and
Yes,
27. That's what I meant to say. Thanks.
All those in favor, move camera. Thanks. Did we clean the? Oh, there it is.
Motion for adjournment?
Yes, go ahead. All those in favor? Those opposed?